Okay, so we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Roger Paul, and today we are going to continue with part 3 of an introduction to the Urantia book. And we're going to jump right into this today because if you have not seen the other parts of this, you can listen to this all the way through, but it might not make as much sense as if you watch the first 2 parts. So just to let you know. Some of this is repeats of some of the stuff in the first 2 parts because it's by different. I got the sources from 3 different places. So some of it's a little bit of a repeat and some of it's not. But last time we had talked about a history by Larry Mullins. And this is a continuation of his history about Dr. Sadler. Dr. Sadler was one of the 6 that the book was revealed to. They called it the Contact Commission. And so we're going to find a little bit more about the background of Dr. Sadler and Lena Sadler and that sort of thing, so that people kind of know what kind of person he was. And so I'm just going to jump right into it with the very first paragraph here. A history. Dr. William Sadler, a Seventh-day Adventist minister and associate of Ellen G. White, married Lena Celestia Kellogg, December 3rd, 1897. She was the niece of the cereal company founder and alternative medicine practitioner and the former Seventh-day Adventist J.H. Kellogg. He started the Kellogg Cereal Company, if y'all have never heard of that. Surely you have. The Sadlers became increasingly disenchanted with the Seventh-day Adventists after critiquing Ellen White's testimonials and visions. She had testimonials and visions. She claimed to be a medium, and Dr. Sadler did not believe in mediums. Okay, so culminating in Dr. William Sadler writing a letter to White in which he challenged her teachings. He didn't believe that her teachings were true. Okay, so if you got that in your background, you've got some history of Ellen G. White. She wrote a bunch of papers and it's a book about all these visions and things. She claimed to be a medium. So after receiving his MD from the Adventist American Medical Missionary College, Battle Creek, Michigan College, Cooper Medical College, University of Chicago, MD, American Medical Missionary College, University of Illinois, 1906, studied in Europe with fraud till 1911, practiced in Chicago since 1906. Formerly professor, Postgraduate School of Medicine of Chicago, professor, lecturer, and pastoral psychology, Presbyterian Theological Seminary, Director of Chief Psychiatrist, Chicago Institute of Research and Diagnosis, 1906, attending psychiatrist, Columbus Hospital North Side Rest Home, consulting psychiatrist, W.K. Kellogg Foundation, Battle Creek, Missouri, fellow Michigan, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make that Missouri real bad, ain't it? Fellow American College of Surgeons, AMAAAS, American Psychiatric Association, Illinois State Medical Society, Chicago Medical Society of Mental Hygiene, Chicago Society of Personality Study, and author of multiple books. I believe there was 29 before Minds at Mischief in 1929, I believe. If I could be wrong on that, but that's pretty close. So let's go on to the whole point of this is this. When they chose Dr. Sadler to reveal with this group of 6, this is not just some fly of the night guy, okay? He was very, very credentialed as a medical doctor and psychiatrist, and so was his wife, Lena. She was a medical doctor and psychiatrist. So these 2 people they chose to reveal this book, two of them were very high credentialized. That's the whole point of this. And the reason they may have chosen Dr. Sadler is he was a skeptic about all this mediumship. This was during a period of time when there were a lot of people running around claiming to be psychics and mediums. And so Dr. Sadler, along with Thurston and Houdini and some other people, went around and to disprove these mediums. And a good example of this, I want to bring this up because you'll see these stories on things like the unexplained and things like that, aliens and all this other stuff, that during I believe it was 1906 to 1911, there was a society called the Theosophy Society, very, very well known. And they all got together from the psychic readings of this one woman, and I'm not going to mention her name, it doesn't matter. But there was very high profile people in this society, including who was it that started electricity?
Westinghouse?
No, it wasn't Westinghouse. It was the guy that started
Edison?
Edison. That's who I couldn't think of. Edison. Now, not involved was Tesla. He did not get involved with it, but there was a lot of high-end people that was involved in this Theosophy Society, and they were all sitting around listening to these statements from this woman that's claimed to be talking to a monk in Tibet. Okay. And so it got to be a big deal. This is during the period of time we're talking about. The book was starting to be revealed. And the reason I'm bringing this up is Dr. Sadler did not believe that these mediums were talking to anyone. Okay. And so that's the whole point of this. He was a doubter. All right, so I wanted to bring that up. And another thing I want to bring up is this: all these things go in cycles. Every few years, somebody claims to be talking to some Tibetan monk up in the Himalayas. Okay, let me tell you people something. And that's this: you do not need to go climb a mountain, talk to some monk or anything like that to have God revealed to you. God is inside you. He's part of you. You don't have to go take some trip to talk to some monk that doesn't know what the beings he was talking about to get enlightened. You can get enlightened by yourself. And that's what this book is about, is being enlightened, right? So don't waste your money on going on a trip. Read the book. I guarantee you'll be enlightened more than you could ever imagine just by reading this book. And that's why we're doing this, so that you can. All right, let's go on to the next one. Dear, would you take the next one for me?
Sadler worked with 1907 through
Do you have your ears?
Oh dear, no, I don't have them. I'm sorry. Here I am coming in late.
Better stick her ears in.
Sorry. I could hear myself just fine.
Yeah, well, I hear you too. I'm
Get this turn thing.
getting double duty.
There you go. Okay. 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 Sadler worked from 1907 through 1915 as a popular orator on medicine on the Chautauqua circuit. In 1911, I used to live in Chautauqua. In 19, I used to live there. It was a artistic community. In 1911, Sadler had his first session with the sleeping subject described in his book, The Mind at Mischief. This sleeping subject is believed by many to be a description of the process through which the fifth epical revelation was received. Sadler, along with a stenographer, transcribed the statements of the sleeping subject during their 209 sessions that occurred over 18 years. According to Sadler, the communications which have been written on, or which we have had the opportunity to hear spoken, are made by a vast order of alleged beings who claim to come from other planets to visit this world, to stop here as student visitors for study and observation when they are en route from one universe to another, or from one planet to another. These sessions became particularly important in 1924, when the celestial being Melchizedek announced that this method of communication between the celestial group of revelators from the Melchizedek schools and the to-be-formed Human Contact Commission would continue to be used. The Contact Commission consisted of Dr. William S. Sadler, Dr. Lena Sadler, William S. Sadler Jr., Anna Kellogg, sister of Lena, and Wilford Kellogg.
Okay, so basically this is how everything started from the beginning, according to what Dr. Sadler told us. Now, interesting point in this I want to bring up is it said during their 209 sessions, y'all see that in this paragraph? Dr. Sadler actually said there were 240 sessions. Okay, so we're quite a few more than just the 209. But these sessions they're talking about is the sessions they had when they were in communication with the Contact Commission. Okay, and that included the midwayers, and this was made possible through the midwayers. Okay, and I've explained what the midwayers are in a previous video. So if you want to find out more about that, you're going to have to listen to the previous video, unfortunately. I don't want to repeat myself over and over again. Okay. Can you read that, Gary, on your computer okay?
I think so.
Okay.
Sadler described the process of receiving and compiling the revelations in this way. The revelators would leave a set of handwritten papers in a predetermined place. The Contact Commission would read the papers to the form. A group of humans formed to study the papers, who would then draft questions based on the revelations. The revelers then drafted a second series of papers in response to these questions. The process by which the papers were transcribed by the Contact Commission is highly unique. According to Meredith Sprunger, former president of the Urantia Brotherhood, whenever the original papers were copied, the originals always disappeared. $10 bills were placed between the sheets, and they found the original papers would disappear, but the bills would remain in the locked safe. The Contact Commission discovered that after some papers were read and placed in the safe, they disappeared. Other papers were altered after being read to the form. The assumption is that they were required to read these papers to the form so that these spirit beings could observe human reaction to the material presented. Interestingly, while Sadler was later willing to discuss in detail the transmission of the Urantia book, he refused to reveal two critical facts. One, the name of the individual who was used by the revelators as the channel between the revelators and the Contact Commission, and two, the specific way in which the papers that formed the Urantia book appeared.
So they didn't want any human contact associated with this book whatsoever. Okay, and that's why they went to such great lengths to do this in the particular way they did it, especially during this period of time when everybody and their brother was running around claiming to be a psychic or a medium, right? So they want to keep this as clean as humanly possible, and they did a pretty good job of that. All right, let's see if I can read this.
It's pretty small print.
That's pretty small for even me. Let me make this full screen here. That helps a little bit, doesn't it? Okay. The first 118 papers of the Urantia book, that's the first three sections, lacking one paper, were completed in 1934. Part 4 of the Jesus papers was completed in 1935. In 1939, a group of 70 volunteers known as the 70 began studying the Urantia papers. Their study was led by the revelators until the publication of the Urantia book in 1955, at which point the regulators discontinued their contact with the message, "You were on your own." So they were done.
No.
Huh? Now,
No, you're on
you,
your own
you
now.
are on your own now. Okay. The formation of the Urantia Foundation, the central group affiliated with the Urantia book and the copyright holders of the publication, preceded the publication of the book by 5 years, determined to avoid creating a church based upon the Urantia book. The foundation instead created in 1955 a fraternal organization for the readers called the Urantia Book Brotherhood. Now, the foundation, according to Wikipedia, started in 1950. Dissemination of the book was rapid. 4,291 copies had been distributed by 1960, over 100,000 copies by 1980, and by 1996, over 30,000 copies were being distributed each year. The 1970s marked a period remarkable growth of Urantia. For several readers began reading excerpts, there are no experts, right? From the Urantia book on Southern California radio stations. And in 1972, the University of California, Bakersfield offered the course, An Introduction to the Urantia Book. This is a college. The Urantia Book Foundation also successfully cornered the market on the Urantia book, copyrighting the word Urantia in 1972. And Urantian in 1973, and signing confirmatory and licensing agreements in 1974. This is a big dispute that went on during this period of time, y'all. I would remember it well. Within the movement, the Urantia Foundation sued member Bob Burton in 1975 for giving the Urantia materials to all the members of Congress. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? And in 1976, pressured the Urantia Brotherhood to sell their rights to the Urantia to the foundation for $1. The schism reached its climax in 1990 when the Urantia Foundation disenfranchised the Urantia Brotherhood. This was a big deal, y'all. I remember when all this was going on. It was a big split in the foundation and the Brotherhood, sending a massive special report in April 1990 to the Urantia readers, explaining that the foundation was forming a new Urantia Brotherhood Association, one that would make the new association less easily politicized and more likely to concentrate on its spiritual mission. Let me tell you what's going on in the background here so that y'all understand what's going on.
Also, that was when we were reading the book.
That's right. That's when we were reading the book. Now, an interesting part is this. During this period of time, there were 3 different individuals that tried to take over the Urantia Brotherhood. Okay. They wanted to be in control of everything. 2 of them wanted to make money off the book themselves. One of them had one of these mediums and psychic telling that he was going to be the new leader of the Urantia Brotherhood and the new foundation, and he would be wealthy because of this. Okay. And another one y'all probably heard of before, and got a big group of the members to go out to California and all join each other in this motel place that they bought. And he predicted that the world was coming to an end. Well, the date came and went, and the world didn't end. So that kind of discredited that one too. And he lost his financial backing when the millionaire that was backing it financially, when the world didn't come to an end, he decided, well, this guy wasn't a medium after all and didn't know what he was talking about. So within the Urantia Brotherhood and the foundation, not the foundation, but the Brotherhood, there's been several people that has tried to take it over. When you have anything of any value, someone wants to step in and be the big head honcho, right? And that's exactly what happened. That was part of this copyright thing that went on. So in 1990, I believe it was, there was a big copyright dispute, And when it went to court, because the copyright was copyrighted within the 1976 copyright laws. And I remember I was studying music back then along with the Urantia book. And in the 1976 copyright laws, it stated if it was not a single author, if you had a single author, you could copyright it for the life of the author plus 25 years or 50 years, something like that. Well, they found out when they took it to court that the Urantia book had multiple authors of celestial beings. So what does that mean? That means that it could not be copyrighted in the pretense that it was put up as. Okay, so since it had multiple authors, they put the copyright into public domain. So it's been in public domain ever since. So that's a long story on a very short leash, right?
Now, why did they sue the guy that gave members of Congress
Because he
a
didn't ask,
copy of the book? Huh?
because the people in charge didn't feel like he asked for permission to do that. I think it was a great idea. I really
I do
did.
too.
You know, if it would have been up to me, I'd have done the same thing, right? Because the members of Congress need to know that the celestial authorities run this country, not the Congress, right? We're under a celestial authority, even though we mess things up so bad as the way we do. But in essence, we are controlled by a planetary prince that's assigned to us right now. And the celestial authorities run this planet, not the other way around. They're just letting us play at governing that. Okay. And we don't do too good a job at it. Any way you look at it. So let's go to the next one. Is that you again, dear? Okay.
The current situation within Urantia circles is strained but improving. The Urantia Foundation lost its copyright to the Urantia book in 1995. The book is now in the public domain. A threatened lawsuit by the foundation against the Urantia Brotherhood and the Jeffersonian Foundation, a Boulder, Colorado-based Urantia organization, was dropped in 1996. Finally, in 1997, the Urantia Foundation and the Urantia Brotherhood agreed to jointly engage in translation of the Urantia book into foreign languages.
So finally, everybody got together and stopped fighting with each other, right? So the current situation is this: the Urantia book is in public domain, which means what? Which means anyone that has a printing press can print a Urantia book. Okay, so the problem comes up with this. The celestial authorities wanted us to maintain a copyright so that the book would be clean exactly the way they gave it to us for 100 years. Okay, so that didn't happen. So we had all these other Urantia books coming out by different people that had printing capabilities. So you have to be careful when you get a Urantia book. If you want one, the only one that's true to form was probably the 1955 version when the first book came out. And then they went back to the original format. I believe it was in 1973, if I remember correctly, because there's been multiple versions put out. They reprinted the 1955 version with the typographical changes that they made and why it was changed. Okay, so those are still pretty good books. And I tell you what, when I was teaching, I went through a Uversa Press version multiple times, and I couldn't find enough difference to make any difference either. So matter of fact, one of our 6 versions on our website, Atlanta Urantia Study Group, or the Fifth Epical Revelation Fellowship.com, are both, there's 2 versions on both of those websites that the numbers are both the original Urantia book and the Uversa Press version. Okay, and that's why I did it, because I was teaching back in 2011. Every time I started the teach, somebody says, that's not the number of my book, you know, so that's what I put it out. So it's probably dead and gone by now, but that's okay. Everybody got a benefit from it at the time.
Is this book accurate?
It's accurate. Yes, it is. Should be accurate.
I mean, I don't.
If it's from the foundation, if any of the printers of the foundation, Gary, it should be accurate, because they went back and notated everything, the things that were changed, most of them were typographical errors, you know.
Yeah,
They
that's
tried,
my,
yeah, that's what they tried to fix. The fact is this though, Gary, because it's in public domain, anyone can come along and print a Urantia book, and you don't know if it's true to form or not.
yeah, but doesn't the, I mean,
If you
number
get up,
one, the thing that keeps it pure is the fact that I don't know if there's any financial incentive to print the book.
not unless you're the foundation, there's really not, because there's not that much interest right now. It was given to us a whole generation, maybe two ahead of time. But see, we're getting into that generation where it is going to make a difference, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because people, as people, more and more people start to read the book, versions of the book are going to be out there online, like my versions, you know, that's directly from the Urantia Foundation. Okay, the version I have out there is from the 1955 version. Okay, I made a lot of research and trying to find the right version to put out there online, because we added pictures and stuff like that to it. But anybody can do that now. That's the problem. They can put it online, they can print it themselves. If you've got a computer, you can put it out any way you want to. So if it's not based on the original 55 version, you know, it's a
I can
big
see a
problem.
lot of, I can see a lot of trouble when it really becomes popular, such as the Bible,
Yes.
because of the,
Yeah.
because of man.
Yes. Well, think of the Bible. You got the, you know, the Catholic version of the Bible, you got the King James version of the Bible, you got the Methodist version of the Bible, and the Lutheran version of the Bible. Everybody has their own version, and all of them added the books they thought that they wanted in there. So there came cropped up what? Apocrypha for the Bible. And that's what they were trying to avoid with the Urantia book. That's why all these things that people claim they got messages and all this stuff, the big channeling fiasco that happened back in the 70s. We had everybody and their brother out in California swearing that they were getting messages from this celestial being and that celestial being. And every single one of them were saying that the Urantia book needed to be corrected in this, needed to be corrected in that, and it was all poppycock. Okay, so if people ask me about channeling, I tell them the same thing that the foundation had made a statement about: is there is no evidence that anyone has communicated about the book since 1955, when they said, or it was actually 1942, I believe it was, they said, we're done. That's it.
You know, the last meeting we went to in North Carolina, they were making some changes, and they were going to discontinue just studying the Urantia book. They were going to use, once again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, me and Diane went to a meeting in North Carolina a few years ago.
Several years ago.
Yeah, several years ago now. And it was supposed to be about the Urantia book. And I did a presentation about the celestial artisans. Well, after we did this, we went to have dinner that night, and there were a whole group of people there, and we didn't realize it, but most of the people there were studying A Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with the Urantia book.
Absolutely
Okay.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And so these people were all sitting around this table saying that they were all getting channeled messages that this in the Urantia book needs to be changed, and this in the Urantia book needs to be changed. So it becomes a problem.
We discontinued our association.
Yeah, so we discontinued our association with that group. But the fact is this: the book is out there and it stands on its own. And according to the revelators, it should stand as a revelation to man for at least 1,000 years. And by then it will need to be updated. Okay. So I'm not looking for an update in my lifetime. Let me put it that way. I know I'm not going to be around 1,000 years. Right. So you have to take all this stuff with a grain of salt. Anybody can put on a funny face or a different suit and call themselves a monk or whatever and claim to be getting messages from someone. Anybody can do it. You know, does not make it true. Okay, so use your brains, people. Read the book and take what you learn from it.
When I first found the Urantia book, I had gone online to see what was said, and there was a picture of a man. He was dressed as a farmer, and he took complete possession of the book. Said he wrote everything,
Yeah,
you know. And I thought, well, this just can't be true. But
yeah.
and then I studied, of course, farther. But
Okay,
If you read the book, you know that's not true.
right.
exactly.
Exactly. That's the whole point. Read the book. That's where it comes from. I think I'm going to go through this one myself, Gary, and let you take the next one. Because I messed up the type on the very first one here. This is the four parts of the Urantia book. I'm going to get into some information on the book itself. When you open the book, it comes in four parts. The very first one is part one, the central and super universes. And this was sponsored by a core of super universe personalities acting under the authority of the Orvanton Ancients of Days. What is that? This. The Ancients of Days is the ruling body of each super universe, and there's 7 of them. Okay, so this first part of the book was sponsored by the core of the ancients, assigned by the Ancients of Days, and these are super universe personalities from Uversa, which is the capital of the 7th super universe. Okay, and that's part 1. Part 2, the local universe. The local universe was sponsored by a different group, okay, by a Nebadon core of local universe personalities acting under the authority of Gabriel of Salvington. Gabriel is the chief executive of our local universe, which is called Nebadon, okay? And Nebadon, our local universe, is what Michael of Nebadon created, or Jesus of Nazareth created. So the local universe, part 2, comes directly from our local universe capital by a core of personalities picked out by Gabriel, which is the chief angel of our local universe, or the chief executive. Okay, so that's part 2. Part 3, this is the history of Urantia, our planet, okay? These papers were sponsored by a core of local universe personalities, again, acting again under the authority of Gabriel of Salvington. Now, when they say the history of Urantia, that's exactly what part 3 is about. It's the history of our planet from the beginning of time up through 1934. Okay, so that's what actually happened. Now, why would they tell us all this history in this book? Because we have lost our own history of our planet. And if you don't believe that, you watch any episode of Ancient Aliens. These guys are clueless. Okay, they tell you things that aren't true. They speculate on things that aren't true. But if you read the book, you will have the history of the world. Let me give you a good example. Last night, they had something on, old episode, and this guy got on and said that Göbekli Tepe out in Turkey was about 10,000 years old to 12,000 years old. You know what I say? Poppycock. That's what I say. It's got to be over 30,000 years old, because it was those kind of things that were going on during the times of Adam and Eve. Okay, so it's got to be at least that old, if not older. So just because you hear something on TV does not make it true. Okay, they also say on Ancient Aliens, in 37,000 years ago, we got a upstepping of our DNA. Now that they got right. You know where the upstepping of the DNA come from? Adam and Eve. Okay, but they said they were aliens. In essence, they meant you could call them aliens because they didn't come from this planet, right? But they were still material sons and daughters. So you want the real story, read part 3 of the Urantia book. Okay, now part 4, the most important part of the book is part 4, the life and teachings of Jesus, and we know as Michael of Nebadon. Okay, he's of the Order of Michael, Creator Sons. Okay, this group of papers was sponsored by a commission of 12 Urantia midwayers. We know midwayers are just outside our site, and there's 10,000 or little, just less than 10,000 of the primary, and there's about 1,800 and something of the secondary midwayers. These two groups got together, and they are the Urantia Midwayer Commission, and 12 of these Urantia midwayers were acting under the supervision of Melchizedek of Revelatory Director. He was the Melchizedek that was assigned to make sure this revelation was as close to being accurate as possible. Okay, that's the celestial beings. The basis of this narrative was supplied by a secondary midwayer who was one time assigned to the superhuman watch care of the apostle Andrew. And if you read the Urantia book, you know that Andrew was the head of the apostles. He was the administrator of everything. His brother Peter was a better preacher, so he ended up, after the death of Christ, Peter became the head of the church. Okay, because he could preach better than Andrew. Go ahead, Gary.
I think at this point we should point out who a Melchizedek is.
Melchizedek is the chief types of beings that train mortals from the time they get to the mansion world all the way up to the capital of the local universe. So they are the teachers of every type of being under Gabriel.
They are heavy-duty spiritual beings that look out after this world.
That's right. They are heavy-duty spiritual beings. These are the teachers and administrators of our entire local universe. It's the highest order of created beings by Michael or Jesus and the local universe creative mother spirit, the highest order of being. Okay.
I think we should mention that at this time, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Michael Melchizedek, I forgot the correct pronunciation.
Macavincio Melchizedek, you mean?
Is one that materialized himself in front of Abram, who later became Abraham, which was the founder of the Christian religion, and he did it so because of the conditions of the earth at the time. These people are really watching over us.
And let's make one correction to that, Gary. He didn't actually materialize in front of Abraham. He actually materialized in front of a gentleman that was a herder. Okay, had flocks out in the field, and he materialized and walked in this guy's tent and said, "I am El Elyon. I am the chief, the priest of El Elyon." Their concept of God the Father. Okay, so he walked in this guy's tent, told him he came to reveal truth to him, and then he met Abraham after that. Now, I didn't want to get anybody the idea they actually appeared in front of Abraham. No one actually saw him appear. They saw him when he walked into a tent of a herder. Okay, he spent the night with this herder, and then everything came after that the next day. So, you know, imagine this: you're tending your herd, you're in your tent getting ready to have a supper, and this 6-foot guy walks in and with this emblem, around his neck. It looks like this, much bigger, of course, and says, "I am the priest of El Elyon." Now, talk about a bold statement. You know, he's in essence saying, "I am a priest of God the Father. I've been sent here to help keep the concept of God alive because you guys are going so off course." Okay, so I just didn't want anyone to think that he actually appeared in front of Abraham. Abraham, he met after that, and Abraham believed in him on his own. And that's an important point, because there was nothing miraculous about Melchizedek meeting Abraham other than the fact Abraham's presence. Everyone that came in contacting with him, it was obvious he was above just being a normal human. You know what I mean? So, and that's important because Abraham had to have faith in that, and he didn't believe him right off the bat. He became a student, and as being a student, and he eventually was convinced that he was who he said he was. So, you know, we're all doubting Thomases, right? When we first encounter something like that. You know, someone walked into my house and said they were the, you know, from God, wanted, you know, I don't know.
Sometimes they can do that and not tell you who they are.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Would you take the next one, Gary?
Oh, good.
Okay. Mankind should understand that we who participate in the revelation of truth are very rigorously limited by the instructions of our superiors. We are not at liberty to anticipate the scientific discoveries of 1,000 years. Revelators must act in accordance with the instructions which form a part of the revelation mandate. We see no way of overcoming this difficulty, either now or at any future time. We full well know that while the historic facts and religious truths of these series of revelatory presentations will stand on the records of the ages to come. Within a few short years, many of our statements regarding the physical sciences will stand in need of revision in consequence of additional scientific developments and new discoveries. These new developments we even now foresee, but we are forbidden to include such humanly undiscovered facts in the revelatory records. Let it be made clear that revelations are not necessarily inspired. The cos- cosmology of these revelation is not inspired. It is limited by our permission for the coordination and sorting of present day knowledge. While divine or spiritual insight is a gift, human wisdom must evolve.
Okay, two things I want to point out here. Notice where it says not inspired, that's in italics. And in human wisdom must evolve is in italics. In other words, they want to make sure that we got the fact that the cosmology they talk about of the universe is not inspired. It is what we knew at that present time in 1934. Okay, so what they gave us as much as they possibly can without telling us things we haven't earned or discovered yet. Okay, so over a period of 100 years or 1,000 years, many things they say about the makeup of the universe must be updated because we did not know that and they were not allowed to tell us. Okay, so that becomes very important. Okay. Next is what the Urantia papers say about how they were materialized in English language. I got 11 slides on this, so it's quite a bit. We're going to go through these fairly fast because I want to make sure we finish this today. So Diane, would you take the next one, please?
Well, hello, Rodney.
Hey
Hey,
guys,
Rodney.
sorry I'm late.
Okay. Did you change? It's okay. Okay. What the Urantia papers say about how they were materialized in the English language, 11 slides. The gap between the material and spiritual worlds is perfectly bridged by the serial association of mortal man, secondary midwares, primary midware, Urantia cherubim, mid-phase cherubim, and seraphim. In the personal experience of an individual mortal, these diverse levels are undoubtedly more or less unified and made personally meaningful by the unobserved and mysterious operations of the divine thought adjuster. I need to read that from that one.
Okay, the divine thought adjuster, of course, is the father fragment, or the peace of God within you. What they're telling us here is this: there's such a wide gap between the material world, the Morantia world, and the spiritual world, that all these types of beings are required to bridge that gap between the different levels. And what they're telling us here is we need association with a mortal. We need the secondary midwares, which is the next level up. The primary midwares is the level up from that. And then the next level up from that is the Morantia cherubim, which we all have assigned to us, and a mid-phase cherubim, which we have assigned to us. And then at last, the seraphim. Seraphim is our guardian angel. So all these beings are necessary for us to receive information down from the top. And we, on top of that, at the very end of it, even though we have this downstepping of information, you still have to have the father fragment or the thought adjuster to make any meaningful observations of this material. So what am I telling you? I'm telling you that all these phases of beings were used to bring this revelation to you. Okay, it's pretty important. And knowing that, even though they downstepped this information down to the very lowest level, you would still be lost in the clouds if it weren't for what? Your father fragment, your thought adjuster. The thought adjuster makes sense of all this. Okay, so you see the importance of the thought adjuster in this.
Roger,
Yes.
can happen to see a Urantia cherubim
Right.
or old cherubim Urantia?
Yes, they're all considered Morantia cherubim because
Okay.
they're on the Morantia level of existence. So that's why we can't see our own cherubim that's assigned to us. Okay.
Gotcha.
Remember, even the cherubim, as they gain experience, they can become teachers in the mansion worlds. So these Morantia cherubim will be teaching us when we get to the mansion worlds. Part of this revelation is to prepare us for those teachings, right? Okay. Whew. Let's see here. Rodney, would you take the next one for us, please?
Yes. Midwayers vary greatly in their abilities to make contact with the seraphim above and with their human cousins below. It is exceedingly difficult, for instance, for the primary midwayers to make direct contact with material agencies. They are considerably near the angelic type of being and are therefore usually assigned to the working with and ministering to the spiritual forces resident on the planet. They act as companions and guides for celestial visitors and student sojourners, whereas the secondary creatures are almost exclusively attached to the ministry of the material beings of the realm.
Okay, so there are two types of midwares they're talking about. The primary midwares, who are the higher level of midwares, and they communicate with more angels and visitors and things like that. And then the secondary are just above us, and the secondary are the ones used to communicate with us. So if you think of it this way, if they had the revelation they wanted to give to us, this revelation, they talked to 6 beings, right? Human beings. So this information had to come from like a celestial being or an angel, down through a primary midwayer, then down through a secondary midwayer, and then finally to us. Okay. And the other things that's interesting about this is the primary midwayers would work with the student visitors and celestial visitors that would come to this planet to reveal this information to us. And then the secondary midwayers would relay this information to us, with the exception of the life of Jesus. And the life of Jesus they had firsthand. Okay. So that's why this stuff is becomes.
They who?
Huh? The secondary midwayers. Secondary midwayers had
Oh.
this firsthand, right? Okay. Now you could probably asking yourself, why is he going through all this? I want you to understand the importance of all that went into trying to reveal truth to you. I'm
Mhm.
trying to reveal to you the importance of this book and the information in this book for your life now and for your life in the future.
This is the accurate.
Because this is the accurate. This is not some psychic saying, I think, you know, this is truth. Okay. So here we go again. All right. Gary, would you take the next one?
Yeah. The 1,111 loyal secondary midwayers are engaged in important missions on Earth. As compared with their primary associates, they are decidedly material. They exist just outside the range of mortal vision and possess sufficient latitude of adaptation to make at will physical contact with what humans call material things. These unique creatures have certain definite powers over things of time and space, not exempting the beasts of the realm.
So they're not going to make the beast run over the cliff or anything like that, right?
Hmm.
That's what they're saying here. You know, like they
What,
said,
what, you mean, what they mean not accepting? To me, that means they could do that if they wanted to.
they could do that or if they wanted to, but they don't normally. Okay, so don't think if your dog runs up to you and licks you, it's the midwayers trying to get you to your attention. Okay,
Can
they
I
don't.
make ask a question?
Yes, please.
I have seen on YouTube, etc., where people see, they'll be sitting off cameras and doors open and chairs move across the room and, stuff that appear to shouldn't be happening. Could this be midwayers just messing with things?
Could be. We don't know. They don't normally do that anymore. Now, if this was 2,000 years ago during the time of Christ, I'd say definitely yes. Okay, because they mess with human beings constantly. That's where all the concepts of devils and demons came from, right? Them moving things around, possessing people. That they don't do that anymore. So I'd say probably most of the phenomena, if that's what you want to call it, has logical explanations. Most of it, right?
Correct.
So I don't get too bent up on any of it anymore. It's to me it's not that important. But okay. Let's see here. Let's go on to the next one. Let me go ahead and read one myself since we have too few people. When assigned to a planet, cherubim enter the local courses of training, including a study of planetary usages and languages. The ministering spirits of time are all bilingual, speaking the language of the local universe of their origin and that of the native super universes. So that's two separate languages, the native of the super universe and the language of the local universe. By study in the school of the realms, they acquire additional tongues, and that's the tongues of the planets. Cherubim and Sanobim, like Seraphim, and all orders of spirit beings are continuously engaging in efforts of self-improvement. Only such as the subordinate beings of power, control, and energy direction are incapable of progression. Those two orders don't progress. All creatures having actual or potential personality, volition seek new achievements. So they learn things just like we do. So when you wake up on the mansion world, your head's not going to explode from all this new information. You have to learn it just like all other creatures do. Okay, so when you wake up, you don't know any more than you did when you were on the planet. So why is that important? If you didn't learn anything about this book when you're on the planet, you think you're going to know anything? Not likely.
Nope.
Not at all. Because you didn't take the time to learn. Okay. Did I not change that? I read that and didn't change the slide, did I? Sorry, y'all. You just had to take my word for it. Okay.
Did you skip one?
No, I forgot to change the thing. I read it, but I didn't have it on the screen. So
Oh,
we're going to, yeah.
I read it along.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. Diane, you're back up again, dear.
One of the most important things a destiny guardian does for her mortal subject, is to effect a personal coordination of the numerous impersonal spirit influences which indwell, surround, and impinge upon the mind and soul of the evolving material creature. Human beings are personalities, and it is exceedingly difficult for non-personal spirits and free-personal entities to make direct contact with such highly material and discreetly personal minds. In the ministry of the guardian angel, all of these influences are more or less unified and made more nearly appreciable by the expanding moral nature of the evolving human personality.
Okay, notice first of all it says
You're muted.
You're muted.
sorry, y'all. Notice it says her subject. All guardian angels are female, every single one of them. Okay. The other things I want to bring out here is it's very difficult for all these types of beings to make contact with the human mind. Okay.
We're so dense.
Because we're so dense. That's right. So that's why we have the Spirit of Truth and we have the Holy Spirit working with your thought adjuster to manifest these beneficial things to your personal mind. Okay. So it all works together. No one thing influences you. It all works together as a whole. Okay. And your thought adjuster is the head kahuna in that whole. I just want y'all to understand that. Okay. Okay. Rodney, would you take the next one?
Yes, is that word triune?
Triune, these triune rulers.
Okay. These triune rulers of the major sectors are peculiarly perfect in the mastery of administrative details, hence their name, perfections of days. In recording the names of these beings of the spiritual world, we are confronted with the problem of translating into your tongue. And very often, it is exceedingly difficult to render a satisfactory translation. We dislike to use arbitrary designations which would be meaningless to you. Hence, we often find it difficult to choose a suitable name, one which will be clear to you and at the same time be somewhat representative of the original.
Okay, so what they're telling us is the name perfection of days for the major sectors are just a arbitrary designation they gave. When we get to the mansion world, we're going to have to learn all new names for things.
Mhm.
Okay, because they're trying to reveal to us a concept that's as close as humanly possible for these rulers. And the perfections of days are Trinity origin beings. They are the representation of the Trinity to the major sectors. Okay, so that's why they're called perfections of days. They have perfect wisdom for administering the major sectors. Okay, that's why they call the perfections of days. All the names are that way. That's what they're trying to reveal to us here. All right.
Roger,
Yeah.
I often tell people that the Spirit of God within them, although the book calls them thought adjusters or mystery monitors, it's just an English, it's our language.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
a
not
term.
actually what their name,
Yeah.
or it's just the best way to describe them.
And that's probably why they could describe them in 3 different terms, like thought adjusters, mystery monitors, or father fragments, depending on what universe you're in. A better explanation of them would be either a father fragment or a mystery monitor or a thought adjuster. In our case, our best description is a thought adjuster because it adjusts our thoughts, right, to more spiritual values.
And maybe cause something different in the Urantia world.
That's right. That's right. Gary, would you take the next one, please?
Each super universe has its own language, a tongue spoken by its personalities and prevailing throughout its sectors. This is known as the tongue of Uversa in our own super universe. Each local universe has its own language. All of the higher orders of Nebadon are bilingual, speaking both the language of Nebadon and the tongue of Uversa.
Okay, so all the beings, the celestial beings, all are know both languages. Any way you look at it, right? Okay. Okay. Oops. Past it. Here we go. Would you take the next one, dear?
The ability to translate thought into language in the Urantia, or spirit and spirit spheres, is beyond mortal comprehension. Our rate of reducing thought to a permanent record can be so speeded up by the expert recorders that the equivalent of over 500,000 words or thought symbols can be registered in 1 minute of Urantia time. These universe languages are far more replete than the speech of the evolving worlds. The concept symbols of Uversa embrace more than 1 billion characters, although the basic alphabet contains only 70 symbols. The language of Nebadon is not quite so elaborate, the basic symbols or alphabet being 48 in number. Good.
Okay, so let me give you an example of how fast these guys can go in translating stuff. The entire Urantia book is about 500,000 words, I think, if I remember.
Really?
Yeah, about 500,000. If I remember correctly. Don't quote me on that. I'm pretty sure that's close, though. So the whole Urantia book can be revealed in less than 1 minute
Of our time.
of our time.
Dang.
They can learn that fast, too. So can you imagine trying to slow everything down for RP brains?
Is that so with the Urantia world?
Probably so. Probably so. You know, so we are really backward. Anyway, look at it, right? To say the least, that's not an understatement, right? Okay. Let's see who's up next. Oh, Gary, I think you're up again now.
Okay. Acting as interpreters for the seraphic guardians and the finaliters are the exalted and liberated midwayer creatures. Note, the technique of materializing the Urantia papers into the English language involved the help of all the above mentioned personalities together with the thought adjusters of the thought adjuster of the sleeping subject.
Okay, so all the things they just talked about were used in revealing this book to us. I think this book's important.
Roger, imagine that means that we are so slow. They probably get very bored with us.
What do you mean? Yeah, I'd say so.
They're so slow, it's like trying to fill the Lake Erie with a drop of water every minute.
Yeah. If the water you were dropping in there was like molasses. Right.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
The sleeping, how did they get the papers from they came through the sleeping subject?
No, the papers did not come through the sleeping subject. That's a misnomer. The communication to the 6 commissioners was done through the sleeping subject. Okay. The papers themselves were revealed in a totally different way. And a good example of that is, hand me that book under the Urantia book there, dear. In the book by Larry Mullins, William Sadler Jr. did a really good job with a picture in here of how the thing may have happened. You can't quote him on this because this is how it may have happened. And this is on page, if you have this book, right? The history of the Urantia book. Right after, you find the right page here, because he's got these illustrations all over. Paper 104, there's a bunch of illustrations, and one of them is his concept of a possibility of the way the papers actually were revealed or manufactured. Okay. And that's that picture. I'll let y'all look that up if you have this book, right? I'm not going to plagiarize his book, but this was a physical materialization of a paper by Bill Sadler Jr. That was the whole point of this, of how they believe that this happened. Okay. But it's got involved with it this, the thought adjuster, a primary and secondary midwear, and then it appears in the paper form on a desk. Okay. So you had a primary involved, the secondary involved, and somehow these papers materialized in a written fashion on a desk somewhere, the room they were in. Handwritten by some midwear.
And then they put them in a safe.
They put them in a safe. Well, what had to happen was they had to be transcribed from the written in pencil at this to type papers.
Correct.
And guess who'd had to do that? A human being, right?
Correct.
Christie, right?
That was the transcriber.
That was the transcriber. Okay. Now, with each one of these steps, there's a possibility of something getting slightly changed or whatever, right?
Of course.
Because it's human beings then involved, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard for us to understand the adjuster of the sleeping subject was used for communications to the six. You follow me?
Mhm.
So the sleeping subject was mostly used for the communications to the sixth, but it was somehow in an unknown fashion used in the materialization of the written papers themselves. Now, keep in mind, we talked about this in another slide before this. When they read the papers to the forum, right, after they were typed up, they read the papers to the forum. What happened? They put the papers back in the safe. All right.
Well,
The papers disappeared, and Dr. Sadler got a kick out of putting dollar bills between the papers so that he would know whether somebody was going in, or $10 bills was going in. In the 30s, $10 was a lot of money, right? So he'd put the $10 bills between the pages, and when they came back, the pages were gone, but the $10 bills were still there, every single one of them. And finally, the secondary midwears asked Dr. Sadler to stop doing that because it caused them problems getting the papers out.
yeah, sure.
You know?
So, Roger,
So let me finish my thought before I lose the thought. After they put the papers back in the safe, the papers disappeared, they were changed, and they came back, and then they reread them to the group. Because
that was my question.
Yeah, they reread them to,
After
afterwards.
Christie would type them, and they
Yeah,
were read, the questions would come in,
yes.
and then the papers disappear. But then it's like, okay, we've got to explain this.
Yeah, more. Yeah, because the P minds of the people that they were reading them to didn't understand,
Okay.
right? You didn't have somebody like me that knew everything that taught it to them, right? I'm being facetious, y'all. That was supposed to be a joke. All right, but they read the papers to them, they saw the reaction, then they went back and rewrote the papers, and they'd read it to them again, see how they'd react.
Wow.
Okay. It was a long drawn out process, but keep in mind before any paper came through, these contact personnel taught the six for almost 20 years, 18 to 20 years before they gave them the first paper.
Man.
You got that? So they had to have a basis or a starting point for the revelation. It's how stupid we are, right? So let me put it this way. In about 20 years, if people listen to all the videos I did, in about 20 years, they might start getting it. I'm joking, y'all. Ha, ha, ha.
I was just going back thinking
But
they've
that's,
been looking for what, 12, 13
yeah,
years?
right.
Well, another 7 years.
Yeah, you might start getting it a little bit, right? That's kind of the way we think. All right, let's go on. Who's up? I think you're up again, Dave.
Apart from possible
No,
what?
that's wrong.
Oh, the adjuster. This one. Okay. Apart from possible coordination with other deity fragments, the adjusters are quite alone in their sphere of activity in the mortal mind. The mystery monitors eloquently bespeak the fact that though the Father may have apparently resigned the exercise of all direct personal power and authority throughout the grand universe, notwithstanding this act of abnegation, I've never heard of that word,
Yeah.
in behalf if in behalf of the supreme creator children of the paradise deities, the Father has certainly reserved to himself the changeable right to be present in the minds and souls of his evolving creatures, to the end that he may so act as to draw all creature creations to himself, coordinarily with the spiritual gravity of the paradise sons. Said your paradise bestowal son, when yet on Urantia, if I am lifted up, will draw all men. This spiritual drawing power of the paradise sons and their creative associates we recognize and understand, but we do not so fully comprehend the methods of their all-wise Father's functioning in and through these mystery monitors that live and work so valiantly within the human mind.
So basically what they're telling us here, that only God the Father has the right to instill himself in your mind, okay? Only the Father has the right to do that. So no other being, regardless of who they are, has the power or the right to dwell within your mind. Now, all the other influences, like they're talking about the spiritual drawing power of the sons, okay? That is an outside influence. The Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, your guardian angels, all these other spirits that influence you are outside in influences. God the Father is a inside in influence. You see the difference? And only God the Father has that authority. Okay? That's what
God
they're
the
talking.
Father is incarnated in us in the thought adjuster or the mystery monitor, whatever you want to call him.
Right.
That which makes us parts of him would be a mini God in
Yes.
the most extreme sense.
Deity incarnate, right? That's what
Roger,
it is. Yes.
what about before Jesus's time, the rebellious midwayers
Right.
no right to enter a feeble mind,
Yes.
however they would do that.
Yeah, they had the right to enter feeble people back then. That's where you had the devil possessions and things like that. Even then, though, they could not invade a normal human mind that did not invite them in. Okay, that's a misnomer. When you read the New Testament, you think that they could just attack you and invade your mind, but that wasn't the case at all. Even back then, the Holy Spirit would not allow that to happen, but those was unnormal minds that happened to. Okay, that's why they call them
Or
feeble-minded
weak minds.
or weak minds, right? Or if you invited them in, if you invite something like that, a spirit into yourself, if they were out there, were available, they could do it even today, right? But they're not out there anymore, right? Okay. Let's see who Diane just read. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
The adjuster of the human being through whom this communication is being made enjoys such a wide scope of activity chiefly because of this human's almost complete indifference to any outward manifestations of the adjuster's inner presence. It is indeed fortunate that he remains consciously quiet, unconcerned about the entire procedure. He owes one of the highly experienced adjusters of his day and generation, and yet his passive reaction to and an active concern toward the phenomena associated with the presence in his mind of this versatile adjuster is pronounced by the guardian of destiny to be a rare and fortuitous reaction. And all of this constitutes a favorable coordination of influences, favorable both to the adjuster in the higher sphere of action and to the human partner from the standpoints of the health, efficiency, and tranquility.
So because this individual had such a high adjuster, highly experienced adjuster, and he was non-reactive to all this going on, that's why they could use his adjuster for this process of revealing this book. It is very fortunate for all of us that they could do this.
So when
All
it
right.
says high adjuster, meaning a
Very
very
experienced adjuster, right?
Okay.
Gary, would you take the next one?
Note, the papers tell us the thought adjuster of the sleeping subject was apparently crucial to the materialization process, but we do not know precisely why or how. The quotes above are offered for information on possible relevance since the thought adjuster's activities are pre-personal and include, but are not restricted to the above descriptions. There are many more references in the book of the adjuster's involvement.
So they tried to tell us everything they could about what was going on, basically. Okay. Now the rest of this, some of this I'm going to go fairly quickly through so that we can get it in the time we got allowed here. And some of them I'm going to skip over the paragraphs, and some of them I'll have y'all read. Okay, that's all right with y'all. Okay, this one is just the 5 epical revelations that have happened in time. Okay, and this is from the book, and I put in I thought this was important because it tells us what was going on during that period of time. Okay, this is the 5 epical revelations. The first one being Dalmatia teachings. This is the Caligasser 100. This is from 500 BC to 200 BC until the time of the Lucifer Rebellion. Okay, so it was 200 BC when the Lucifer Rebellion happened. So the first epical revelation stopped at the time of rebellion. Y'all got that? Okay, the second was the Edenic teachers, Adam and Eve, and this was 37,848 years before the writing of the book. Okay, the third one was Melchizedek of Salem, which we talked about a little bit today, and this was 1980 BC. And that was the teachings. All these were revelations of God to man. Okay. About 600 to 500 BC, there was Urantia witnessed a proliferation of new religious truth from the teachings of Maccabean Melchizedek, mostly from the priest. All right, Salem priests. The fourth revelation of God to man was Jesus of Nazareth, 7 BC. Okay. The fifth one is what? The Urantia papers, 1955. Now, these are all 5 of the revelations of God to man. Do y'all notice what's not in this list?
No,
The Quran, the
Quran,
Bible,
the Bible, all the
other
writings,
religious, huh?
all the religious writings down through time. Why is none of these listed? That's the question.
because they weren't revelations.
That's right. They were inspirations to men who wrote them out because they were inspired. They felt like they were inspired to do so. Okay? That's the difference. See the big difference between a real revelation and then something that they considered inspired? So this Old and New Testament that you swear is the Word of God, you think it is the Word of God? Not according to this, anyway, right? Think about that for a minute. Now, if I'm dead 1,000 years and somebody comes along and says, Roger Paul taught these teachings and these were revelations to him from God. Not true, is it?
No.
Right? It's not. These are the revelations, and in probably another 1,000 years, there'll be another one. That's my whole point. So, why is this so important? Because God the Father saw to himself that we should understand where things are going and our past has been and where we're going. And that's why we got a 5th epical revelation. Okay. Makes sense? All right. Y'all bear with me a minute. I'm going to go fly through some of this. This is the timeline as close as possible by a study done by the University of California, Santa Barbara. Okay. And this is the timeline they came up with, which most of it is correct. All right. We have 500,000 years ago, Dalmatia, 200,000 years ago, the Lucifer Rebellion. There's the other proliferation of religious truth, 37,848 BC, Adam and Eve, and then 780 for Melchizedek. And of course, 7 BC is Jesus's birth. Now, the reason I brought this out is this is from their studies of what they considered was true revelation. Okay, the University of California. This is not from the Urantia book. This is the University of California as they evaluated the Urantia book. Okay. And I'm not going to go through every single one of these. This is what they believe, the timeline of everything that happened. And this was used, all of this was used. Oh, I didn't change the slide over here. Sorry, y'all. There's the first. Okay. There's the next one. These are all from the University of California. All right. The third one is the timeline according to them. And this is what they use to come up with their information that Larry Mullins used. Okay. And these are all on the slides. I'm not going to go through all the way back through them because we're just rehashing the same thing. You follow me? Okay. And that's why I'm not going to do it. But you can download the slides and look at these. They're exactly like what Larry Mullins come up with as the timeline as close as possible. But the reason I put these in here is I want you to know that this was by an independent study by a university outside the Urantia Foundation. These guys had nothing to do with the fellowship, the foundation, or anything else. Okay?
Just like you or I would do it.
Just like me or you would do it, an independent study, right? Now, next I have in here the timeline from truthbook.com. Oops, I skipped over one there. This is the timeline as close as possible that you can go out to truthbook.com and download off their website. Okay. And the timelines are all pretty close. Some of them are a couple dates off, but as you go through them, you will find them that everything is pretty much the same all the way down, even to on this particular slide, the arrangements made with Donnelly and Sons in Chicago for the printing of the book. And that was in 1941. You see that?
Mm.
And we know that the book was not printed till 1955. And there's a reason that they did that. They were not allowed to print it till then, until they got the message from Melchizedek, the Melchizedek of record for the revelation, till he felt like it was ready to go. And he was the acting planetary prince of our planet at that time. Okay. So he told him if it was not published, but if he'd not given word to publish it by 1955, January in 1955, it could be published in January in 1955, and he did not give any other message that it should not be. So what happened? The foundation published it January 1955. Okay. And we know from the previous meetings I've had that they delayed it a long time because of World War, right? Because of World War II. And then came along the Korean conflict, right? And Melchizedek's declared war on communism, so they delayed it even longer. Okay. It was a miracle we got it in our lifetime, really. Now, next up are the printings of all the different versions of the book from the foundation and the fellowships. Okay. So if you want to know who printed the book and where, you got a list of it on this page. Okay. And it continues on to the next one. Okay. The printings of the book. There's 2 of them there. And I believe there's one more after this. I can't see it that small. I'll have to look. Yeah.
They don't print it anymore, do they?
Yes.
Oh, they
Yeah.
still.
Oh, they still print it. And now we're printing multiple versions of different translations of the book.
Mhm, I know that.
The International Association does that, right? So and the Uversa, let's see, I was going to point out the Uversa press one, but I don't see it off the top of my head. I think it was in a previous file. But you can go through these three files and you can see when your book was printed, what date and all that, right?
Well, mine, I just looked it up. Printed in 2020. And it's Uversa Press.
Uversa Press. That's right. Remember me talking about putting the inserts of the paragraph numbers from the first Uversa Press book?
Yeah.
That's why. Because the Uversa Press, when it was printed, the paragraph numbers came out different than the original book. So it made it a little more difficult to teach. Okay.
Whoa, so I've got a funky book.
Well, no, you don't, because I can guarantee you the Uversa Press book is as close as humanly possible to the original. It is. The only difference is the original book was set out in certain paragraphs, numbers on certain pages, and it came out different when it was printed on the Uversa Press book. In other words, the pages don't match exactly. You follow me? That's the only difference.
But the sections do.
But the sections do, everything in it does. The difference is when it was printed out, when the print was set, it came out like the paragraph may have been on the next page after that, things like that.
Okay, that could be because of the type print size, the paper size.
You're a genius.
Geez. I tried to be humble.
Yeah. Okay. Next one, these are the sections of the book, which we already went over. And what I want to do is go, before we quit today, I'm going to go in a little bit of what's in the different sections and who wrote them. Okay. So this is from the first section. Of course, the foreword is a divine counselor. right? The foreword was written when? Last. The foreword was written after the entire book was revealed. And Dr. Sadler and Dr. Sadler Jr. went back to the contact personalities and said, we want to write a foreword so that people can understand it. And they told them that you can't ask a kindergarten student to type up a manual for college.
Mm.
So,
So
so they produced a foreword themselves, and that was done after the entire book was revealed. Okay, so the foreword, which is on the front of the book, came after the rest of the book was printed. They were not printed, but revealed. Okay.
But the foreword was not printed by, the foreword was not written by earthly beings. It was written
No,
by the
by
celestial
celestial
beings.
beings. That's right. And that's why when you read the foreword, it is very, very difficult because the foreword explains the concepts that's coming in the book. And the concepts that's coming in the book are very, very difficult. Okay. So ask Rodney, what did we do before we started studying the book? We had a 11-week class on concepts before we read the foreword. Remember that, Rodney, at your house? You know, that's why I did it, is try to explain a little bit about the concepts so that when we studied the foreword, we weren't totally completely lost, right?
Yeah.
Because the problem is this: if you start reading the book on the foreword, by the time you get to the end of the foreword, you're so confused, you don't even want to read the rest of the book.
I agree.
You know? So that's why we did it that way. That's why people start with the life of Christ, because it's like reading a novel. Anybody can understand it. Okay. But when you go straight into concepts like the universal Father, the eternal Son, the infinite Spirit, it can blow your mind because these concepts are advanced, right? And we got little pea minds. So what did we do? We did a pre-forward class. It's called the, I don't even remember what I called it now, Universe Reality, right? The 11-week class on universe reality. And the reason I don't take those videos down is I never redid it again. And the videos look awful. The sound is questionable, but you can get the idea of what we're talking about if you watch the videos, right? Because we were just figuring out how to record everything, and we didn't have anybody professional to do it. We had me up at the front and me running to the back, starting the videos and running back and doing it again. So it was kind of a monkey
It was
show.
primitive.
It was primitive. That's right. You know, we don't make out that it wasn't, but you can get the information. But notice here's part one, and look at all the parts of part one that were written by a divine counselor. What's a divine counselor? A divine counselor is the highest super and paradise individual to teach spiritual concepts. So look at how much of the first part of the book was written by a divine counselor, right? And then after that, the one on the infinite spirit, the divine counselor, and notice the one of the paradise trinity, all three of the deities, that was written by a universal censor. Okay, another high person. And after that, notice it says perfecters of wisdom, perfecter of wisdom. So these are all the concepts of the central and super universe of deity. Okay, so they're trying to bring us up to speed on basic concepts of deity. Now, the second one of this is on the super universe also, and it's a continuation of trying to bring us up to speed on deity and where we are, our place in the universe. So they try to explain to us about the 7 super universes, the local universes, and all the roadmap of what we need to know to get a basic concept. Okay, so the first part of the book is not the easiest part of the book. It's the most difficult. Okay, but they tell us in the book, the reason it was presented in this way is this: it's not proper to build high concepts of spiritual reality by starting at the bottom and working your way to the top. It's more proper to start your way at the top and work your way down and let it kind of sink in to our psyche. And that's what we do. That's why you start the beginning and you go all the way to the end. Now, if you're a new reader and you started the very first part of the book, you will probably be frustrated unless you find some nut like me out there teaching classes on it, right? Because you're going to get lost. And that's why we did it like we did it. We have taught every single one of these chapters or every single one of these papers, one paper at a time, and tried to explain it to the best of our ability. And that's what all these classes have been about. Okay, let's go down to the next part. The next part is this, the local universe. Now, you're going to notice in the local universe part of the book that all of the individuals that are teaching the book are what? All local universe personalities. It starts with the Melchizedek, the mighty messengers, archangels, things like that. These are all beings that started in the local universe. Okay, so that's why they use the highest source of the local universe information for each and every one of these subjects. And if you read through this entire thing on the local universe, you will discover that they talk about every type of being, celestial being, before they get done in the local universe. Okay. And that's why they did it that way. So it gives you a good background of your own, all of everything that Michael created in the local universe. Now, the next section is the history of Urantia. Okay. And I think I went past one here, but that's okay. I did it again. Here we go.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. History of Urantia. Why did they do this? Because we have no written record of everything that's happened since the beginning of time, have we?
That's right.
Unless you're ancient aliens and they know everything, don't they? I'm being facetious. I have this real hair about that, you know. But they relate what they think they know, and this relates what we know we know. That's the difference. Okay. So if you start at the beginning of this section and you go all the way through part 3 of the book, you will have a history of everything that happened on this planet since the beginning of time, including the beginning of human beings 990 some thousand years ago, the beginning of when the first celestial beings came to the planet and tried to upstep us from barbarians to human beings. That was 500,000 years ago. It also talks about the Lucifer rebellion 200,000 years ago, and why Lucifer rebelled, and all the beings that followed him into why we are in quarantine, because our planet followed Lucifer into rebellion, along with 35 other planets. Okay, so all this is in this section, and I'll let you read through that at your leisure. This is part 4. Guess what happens in part 4? This is where the Midway Commission recorded every single thing that happened in Jesus's life, and they took about 1/3 of it and relayed it to us in these writings. Okay, they couldn't tell us everything because it'd take too many volumes. So they gave us the most important things they thought that happened during Jesus's life. And this, you'll notice it talks about Michael's bestowals, okay, before he came to the planet first, right? And that was written by Mantucha Melchizedek. He was the head of the commission to reveal this information to us. The rest of it is all recorded from the Midway Commission, the 12 Midwayers that were assigned to do this. Everything that they had happened from the records of the Apostle Andrew. All 4 Gospels, everything that was ever written in the New Testament, everything that was ever known about Jesus. Okay, and this keeps going on. It goes through his entire life. Okay, all the way to the end, where at the very end, they have an overview of the faith of Jesus himself on paper 196, and that's the very last paper. Okay. Let me go over here for a second. And guess what happens after this?
Or
Something very important. You go have a cup of coffee and look this up on our website. That's why I put these at the very end of the papers. It has a slide with our website, the Fifth Epical Revelation Fellowship. And this is the front matter for the Urantia book itself. And from those, you can go to any paper. So what I'm trying to do is give you a link so you can get to both of our websites and you can get to the paper itself and you can read it right online if you want to. Okay. Hear that, all those people out? You don't even have to buy the book. You can read it right online. You can be cheap or go out and find you a real good copy of the book. You'll be glad you did. Right. Nothing like reading a book, a real book. And that is the best of my ability to give you a very, very long overview of the Urantia book. Okay. That's my last word on the subject. Okay. Glad he shut up, right?
very
All
good.
right. Okay. So we have two different versions of this introduction to the Urantia book. We have one that's 2 hours long where I'm just talking, and then we have one that's 2 sections, and then we have one that's 3 sections that I added a little bit to for the second one. And on the 3-section one, we did it in a group and people could ask questions and stuff. So some people might want to read it one way or listen to it one way, and some people others. But I won't be doing this introduction again, I can tell you. I'm not. We got too many other important things to do. I did this so that people that have not read the book can get an overview of it, and people that have not, that are just starting to read the book, kind of know where it comes from, you know. And I'll tell you right off the bat, many Urantians, people that's read the book, don't like the idea of anybody doing this. Okay, because they feel like you ought to discover it on yourself. All I'm doing is giving you a step in to get started on the book, and that's all I did. So, and that was my opinion, not anybody else's, not
Roger,
even my wife's.
Is there any estimate of the people that follow the book worldwide?
There probably are, Gary, at this point, but it would be hundreds of thousands by now. When I first started reading the book, there weren't, you couldn't find a person, anyone you talked to ever heard of it, you know. I was studying to be a Baptist minister, and I could not find a Baptist minister, a Methodist minister, a Catholic priest, anyone had ever heard the book. Okay. And I'm going to tell you what, since I was studying the New Testament at the time when I was running this around trying to find somebody that knew anything about it, I had a Methodist minister that taught religion and philosophy. He taught the New and the Old Testament. I was in the New Testament class at the time. And I took it to him, very smart man, Methodist minister there in Key West. And I asked him if he had ever heard of it. And he said, never heard of it before. And he asked, I had the copy of it, which was not my copy. It was the copy the guy gave me. I eventually went over and bought my own copy and gave it back to him. But he asked if he could look at the book, and I said, of course. So I gave it to him. He took it for a few days, and on our New Testament class, he brought it back to class one day, and he said, I have never seen anything like that. Never. And I said, well, what do you think of it? And he said, Roger, honest to God, I don't know what to think. There's too much in it. I can't evaluate it in that short a period of time. He said, I'll tell you what I would do if I was you. He said, take it and read it and decide what's best in the book, and take it and make it yours, and what you don't believe, discard. No hurt in doing that, right? And of course, the Baptist preachers I took it to say, oh, it's got to be of the devil. I've never heard of it. You know, standard response. So being a good Baptist, I took the book, and for 9 months, I sit in class at night. I had a job in the piano lab at night, helping people with piano and stuff. And in between people would come in, I'd sit and read this book. And my original goal was to disprove it, because I thought anything that big was trouble. You know, it was going to be trouble in the future. And after a few months, I decided if this is not true, it ought to be, you know, it really should be. So I was convinced myself. It took me a long time to be convinced because I was pretty critical of it. But I compared it to the Bible in every which way I could find. And it's the best thing I ever ran into in my life. It makes the Bible look like a kindergarten primer. It really does. So anyway, that's my opinion. Let's have a little prayer and close for this evening. And let me stop the share here first, get everybody up here. Father, thank you for bringing us together today that we might learn a little bit about your revelation to us. Pray that you will open all those people out there who are thinking about reading the book, open their hearts and minds that they might be open to your message to them. We pray that this book might go all over the world and get its notoriety like it should, and it will replace the lies and things that are false in the wood and straighten out us a little bit and help us make progress. All these things we do trying to follow your will in our lives. So if you would, please give us your will and your life and allow us to follow it the best we possibly can. We say this in the name of your son, Michael, Jesus of Nazareth. Amen.
Amen.
And let me stop the recordings here. I got a lot of places to go and stop the recordings.